Okay, so to start this interview, could you please say your name, the date, and where you're from?
My name is Karin Solis. It's March 2nd, 2024, and I am from Orange County, California.
Thank you. So my first question for you is, have you personally dealt with illness, and if yes, how?
Yes, I have a pretty extensive medical history. Growing up, I wasn't sick that often, but I did have a lot of ear infections and ear problems, and so I was on antibiotics all the time for my ear infections. But other than that, I was really honestly never sick. And so the older I got, the more I started having problems. So now the main things that I deal with is I started out with rheumatoid arthritis. From there, migraines. I had gone to Hawaii and I got a parasite that was stuck in me for a long time, and it ended up pushing me into sepsis and quite a few sepsis attacks. And so I've actually been hospitalized with sepsis 15 times and survived. So I am the ultimate sepsis survivor. I've had a code blue where a nurse had to revive me because I stopped breathing. I have antiphospholipid syndrome, which is a clotting disorder. I've thrown blood clots in all of my limbs, and I've thrown one in my lung. I have a microvascular bleeding problem in my brain, so I've had a bunch of microbleeds and an infarct, a microinfarct in my brain, and which results in TIAs or mini strokes that could also be related to the migraines, called hemiplegic migraines. And I've had quite a few surgeries. It's just one thing that adds on top of the next, and my illnesses kind of play off on each other.
How has all this illness affected you and the people around you?
My illnesses have been had quite a negative impact on me and the people around me. Starting with work, I had lost my job in 2017 because I was having seizures at work. And so that was really difficult because I worked so hard to build my career to where it was, just to have it taken away in a day. Another big negative impact in my life is my family. It's been very hard on my daughter, Ashley. And my husband, Ralph, has had to step in and be my caregiver. And both of them are constantly having to adjust their lives to my medical condition. And it's been very difficult. And even with Ashley, we had such a close, tight-knit relationship when she was younger, but the sicker I got, the more she started kind of putting up a wall. And I understand that wall. It's to protect herself from bad things happening. And so it's just been very difficult to see our relationship change over the years, but I completely understand why.
Thank you. And recently we had the COVID-19 pandemic. Did that have any effect on your reoccurring illness?
Oh, the COVID pandemic has had such an impact on my illness. For one, I'm kind of now a recluse. I really don't leave the house unless I'm going to a doctor's appointment because I'm afraid of COVID. And the illnesses that I have make for quite the challenge to get over COVID. I also had an allergy to the Moderna vaccine, which ended up giving me the deep vein thrombosis episodes. And because of that, I haven't been able to get any of the vaccines or boosters. So, like the Omicron variant, I don't have any protection against that. So it's hard and it's scary. And, another thing is, since the pandemic, the doctor's offices and the ERs and everything are so overrun with people that wait times are a lot longer, and it's so hard all around to get an appointment with a specialist, to get an appointment with my primary care, even to go into the ER and get help could be up to a 10-hour wait. So it's really had an impact on my life.
Yeah. And that's kind of going into my next question of like the hardships that you had to deal with. What were all like the hardships that you had to go through and overcome with the pandemic?
Well, it's, kind of a combination between the pandemic and my illnesses. Because of my illnesses, I was not able to go back to work. I'm now on permanent disability, and so I receive SSDI. So my income is very limited. And with the pandemic came inflation and prices skyrocketing and making it so, it was so difficult to live pre-pandemic on the limited income. But now even more so. Groceries have gone anywhere between 3 to 5 times higher prices. And so, it's very difficult, and it limits, what we can eat, what we can do, what we can, even gas prices have been outrageous, and I have infusions every week that I have to go to, and it's not close. It's quite a drive. And so everything that we do, costs money. And because of COVID, it costs even more now. And it's just very hard on the limited funds. And that my medical case requires so much attention that my husband has to be around. He has to be home here in case something happens. So that's what we're living on, and it's been challenging.
Thank you. So, in general, what are your thoughts about the stigma or bad reputation against illness and disability?
I think it's awful. The stigma and the bad reputation that disability gets. That's the whole primary reason for me losing my job was for having seizures on the job. And we didn't know what it was from. They just find me on the floor in my office and call 911. And it got to the point to where my husband had to sit in the parking lot and wait for me every day because there was likely going to be a call. I was having some internal bleeding issues that my doctors were unaware of. And because of that, I had to have an emergency surgery, and that's where we found the problem and why I was having all the seizures. But for my work to automatically assume that I'm such a liability to the company, that's not fair. Because like I said, I had worked very hard to get my position to where it was, and it's not fair for me to be kicked out of the club, I guess, or, because I had and have a medical condition that doctors couldn't figure out. I can't do the testing. I can't tell them what it is. And so my hands are tied until the doctors can figure out what's going on. And, I think there's just so many people that look at disability as a liability. And it's not. It's unfortunate for the person dealing with it. It's unfortunate for their families dealing with it. But it makes for a bigger challenge for the person that's dealing with it to get through life and to get through, working and whatnot. And it's not fair to pin a disability on somebody and mark them as broken, damaged. It's just not right. We have our problems, but we are also very strong people, and the fight alone to get as far as we've gotten shows that. And so I don't think it's fair for people to look at a disability as a liability. It should be looked at as a challenge for the person and the family that's dealing with it. That's all.
That's great. Now, with this negativity, have you ever seen or heard people talking about illness in a negative way, or even people with higher influence using their platform to spread negativity?
I have heard so many people talk about disability in a negative way. From work, seeing me having my seizures and stuff, I hear the executives talking amongst each other about the level of liability that I was to the company, and even talking about strategies on letting me go, and how are we going to do this without a lawsuit or something like that. Doctors. Doctors are interesting. They are oftentimes there to help, but many times they are so buried in patients because there's not enough doctors and there's not enough nurses, that their bedside manner becomes very negative towards somebody with a disability and is considered in their eyes a frequent flyer. And that's not fair, because just because I frequent the ER, there's usually a big problem that comes along with that. Like I said, I've been hospitalized 15 times with sepsis. I've had multiple code strokes called. In fact, the most recent one a week and a half ago. And each time I'm admitted to the hospital. But to sit back and say, oh, here she comes again, what is it now? That's so negative, and that hurts so bad because all I'm trying to do is make it through another day. And so I really think that doctors need to go back over their code of ethics. And if they have something negative to say, don't even say it right outside of the patient's room. Say it off-site. There's no reason for you to put a patient in more stress, distress than what they're already in for, because this is not the life that they wanted, that they asked for. And you throw some negative bedside manner in, and it's awful. It makes fighting harder. And as for the social media, I've completely cut myself off of social media because I'm tired of hearing it. I'm tired of hearing people with these great lives saying that, how, is it really real that you're sick? Or, oh, I'm sorry, I mean, it's just difficult. It really is. And it's difficult watching people on social media driving through parking lots and harassing people for having a handicap placard on when they're younger. And I have a handicap placard because I can't walk very well. And I'm being pushed around in a wheelchair. And it's for someone to go ahead and assume that just because I'm young, there's nothing wrong with me. Shame on them. And shame on them for even thinking of harassing anybody with a handicap placard, because they think that you don't really need one. There are just so many people that they really should respect disabled people, because their lives could be so much worse. They could be put in my position, but they're not. So rather than making an already miserable person even more miserable, enjoy your life, do good things, help people. Spread positive around the world. Don't kick people while they're down. It's not right.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. So do you think there's anything important that people should understand about illness?
Yes. In most cases, illness is not a choice. It's something that just happens. And you have to change your life around it. And if you're somebody that knows somebody who's going through a hard time, give them a break. Give them a hug. Bring as much positivity in to their lives, because they don't have much to go on. And anything that you can do to make them feel good or special is so important, because they need to grab on to the good and know that there's something that's worth fighting for. And I think it's it's really going away. People wanting to do good. And it needs to come back. And anybody watching this, fight and advocate for the people who need it, for the disabled, for the sick, for the infirm. Advocate for them, for fair care and no judgment and positivity, because it really, really does make an impact.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to add or say before the end of this interview?
Thank you for interviewing me. My daughter is very special to me. And I love how hard she's worked to get here. And she is definitely an advocate for those who need it. And so if anyone has any questions about illness and how to deal with it, talk to Ashley. She's been through a lot. She really has, and I feel for her. But she has muscled through everything that I've had to go through. And she has watched me nearly lose my life too many times. And she has come in and saved my life too many times. So talk to her about it. Ask her. And make a change. Be the positive influence, the advocate that the ill need. That's all I've got.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me interview you. That was my last question. Thank you so much again. I loved all of your responses. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.